is about and what SE does. But maybe just to start off, to understand, why did you join venture capital?
For me, I mean, I knew that I had a strong proclivity to live and die and be happy in the IT industry, and I wanted to make it a point where I wanted to challenge myself, try different things I didn't try before, or I wasn't a full-time employee of. So I've been jumping around, even in Google. I think I changed jobs about 3 or 4 times. And during those times, I've been accruing skill sets that I wanted for the future. And in many ways, when I entered venture capital, although I had prior experiences of segments of what venture capital was about, I didn't have the full experience. So I said, you know, I'm still relatively young, why not I try this? I'm very happy that it's worked out very well. I'm very comfortable with investments, and a lot of the investments that I've done already in the past year, I'm just very happy with the founders and the relationships we built together.
Yeah, that's great. So you made an interesting choice, right? Jumping into Rakuten Ventures. So maybe for the benefit of the audience, could you explain exactly what Rakuten does and why are they suddenly investing in startups through Rakuten Ventures?
Does everybody know what Rakuten does? Have you heard of Rakuten? So in Japan, Rakuten is the e-commerce company of the country. It not only is an e-commerce company, it also has a banking and financial service department. It has a very well-to-do marriage matching business. It's a really cool thing that nobody has started. So, and it also has like a horse racing business that has everything. It has even a baseball team. It won the last year's Nippon Championship. So, in terms of what Rakuten is inside Japan, it is something that's not really describable. It's a next generation of a conglomerate of what a Japanese company would be. But why did they start venture capital? I mean, venture capital as a whole, the investment practice as a whole, existed in Rakuten even before I joined. It was that I think there was a trend continuously where my CEO Hiroshi Mikitani-san wanted to have somewhat of a constructed and a little bit more rigid flow in terms of how they would deal with deals, how they would deal with investment opportunities. So I stepped in, and it's been a year since.
Actually, I only thought you guys did e-commerce, so for me it's quite a revelation that there's so much going on.
Yeah, I mean, in Japan, Rakuten is the #2 online banking company in all of Japan. #1 is Sony Bank. Who the hell knew Sony had a bank? Yeah, so, and thank God somebody laughs. Okay, so and when I went there, it was so amazing in terms of what kind of business they built around. And what they've done is they've created a perfect. Does everybody have the concept of the castle and moat strategy, moat and castle strategy, where this is essentially what a lot of people use as pyramids for Google, where Google has a castle named Search, and they have a bunch of moats surrounding it. That's named Android, YouTube, display advertising, search advertising, and whatnot. And in many ways, Rakuten has created even a more robust moat and castle strategy inside their locked ecosystem in Japan, where you can also have a credit card that's from Rakuten. You can spend those points to pay utilities. You can actually spend those points to go and buy a lotto ticket. The ability to capture users at any different touch point, social, economical, and political, has been one of the strongest subsets of Rakuten's ability to kind of make a living and prosper so much.
So the castle is e-commerce, basically selling, buying and selling on the Switch.
Yes.
So how does Rakuten Ventures come to play? I mean, so if the castle is e-commerce and there's so much going on, so much innovation going on in Japan, right? Just looking at the startups that are happening in Japan, and there's so much innovation there. So why is Rakuten sort of looking across the region? So, and could you maybe talk about the geographical focus and why is Rakuten looking outwards?
Sure. The geographic focus actually has changed. I think about a year ago, Tech in Asia published like the $10 million fund, and we're going to focus on Southeast Asia. But essentially, the pot has expanded very aggressively. I can't tell you the exact amount. But right now, my focus is excising India and China. It's all of APAC, Israel, and also the US. And not just one guy in Rakuten Ventures. In terms of why we're doing this, I think it's kind of touching upon what I referenced before in terms of if we want to build a business outside of Japan, and we also want to see different service segments, and we want to test the boundaries of each of these businesses. One of the businesses that we want to test is how good are we at investing in people, and how good are we at growing these companies. And number one, being able to look at synergistic opportunities, but also secondarily, financial benefits from long-term exit or liquidity events.
Okay, so if I got it correctly, excluding China and India, right?
Yeah. Because again, if you want to execute correctly in China and India, you really need to be on the ground. It's two separate gigantic microcosms, and for me to actually execute correctly and have good coverage is not feasible as of yet. Maybe when I actually grow my organization a little bit more, the story might change, but at least my priorities are as mentioned before.
So how many people at Rakuten Ventures?
Who has two? All right. So it's just me. I run Rakuten Ventures and I do all the due diligence, deal review to execution of contract and everything else. I own the whole process A to Z. Nothing gets over my head. Basically, every single retroactive deal to proactive deal that's actually reviewed in Rakuten gets reviewed by me.
It's a lot of work.
You need a drink.
Yeah. So, how many? Could you perhaps give a rough indication of how many deals you look at on maybe a monthly basis, and how many actually get involved?
Okay, so in terms of, I think I did this once by myself in terms of how much deal review I do. On average, I will look at about 80 deals a week. And when I look at those 80 deals, about half of them, will basically be deprioritized. I'm not looking at them. And then I have about 40 left. Out of those 40, I'll look at maybe 20 that are actually of interest to me. And out of those 20, I'll maybe start to contact 10 of those. And out of 10 of those, maybe 5 I'll start to do very rudimentary due diligence by talking to the people, tracking them, monitoring their progress and whatnot, and kind of going a little bit more methodically throughout maybe 3 or 4 months. So on a monthly basis, I will look at about 320 deals. But in terms of being able to interact with people, I may interact with anywhere between 40 to 50 companies every single day, every single month, actively, proactively.
So, I think I would like to go into the thought process and how you filter down the startups from maybe the cold call, the email pitch, down to the startups you actually pick, right? So, maybe let's start from just the idea and the opportunity. So what exactly are you looking for?
Sure. I mean, this is interesting. I ended up using an old trading roadmap that a lot of the brokers use in public companies. I normally come up with themes that I'm very interested in quarterly. For example, when I first started out and I wanted to invest in Southeast Asia, I saw that there was a deficit in terms of how fast mobile was growing and how commerce was actually being supported by the ecosystem. So I was looking furiously for anything that was related to C2C marketplaces and the ability for these companies to actually interact well with the user base and provide a good platform for transaction. And hence I found Carousel. And then I was looking a little bit more. I was talking internally about how it would be great to see and invest in companies where they had some kind of image recognition technology, because we also wanted to see how far we can stretch our advertising technology and our business. We wanted to also look at payment stacks, and we realized that payment stacks was a very, very interesting question and a conundrum. And this is going from quarterly insights in terms of what we wanted to invest in and what the availability was in the market.
So that was VCS, right, for image recognition, and what's the other one? Coda payments?
Yes, yeah.
So what's next in terms of your outlook going forward? What areas interest you?
For me right now, I'm looking at a little bit more of a very technical skew, but one thing that I'm really interested in is, so I still haven't found a company that I like, but it's related to data masking and encryption. If you look at what the really cool guys in Seoul are doing right now is the practice of encryption is pretty mundane now, because there's so much scrutiny and so much technology going into breaking people's encryptions and whatnot. So what's coming up and what's really cool and what's evolving is people are starting to understand that it's not about making it hard to open the box, it's about making it hard to find the damn box. So it's really, really funny where some of these really cool guys out of KAIST, which is Korea Institute of Technology, is they're able to create this gigantic layer of false flag information that looks very, very normal on top. Oh, it's a dick pic, you know, it's normal, right? Nobody laughs. But anyway, but underneath there is the actual content that actually is filtered through. So in terms of looking at how data and content is actually pushed back and forth, also looking at more technology related to data optimizations, data standards. So you'll see, I mean, it's even happening now where in Indonesia and Malaysia, the overall wireless connectivity is pretty horrible in some regions. And it's actually not, in many ways, the carrier's fault. It's actually the voraciousness of data consumption by the users that are really taxing their systems. So you'll see more and more technology related to people being able to minimize bandwidth usage, but still get the utility they want. So you'll look at, like, last year, I think, Apple bought Algo Trim. Turned out to be kind of a bust, but still they bought it because they wanted to make the overall experience of data consumption and content consumption better.
Sounds very technical, but I really found that good. So that covers pretty much what you're looking at. But in terms of the maturity of stuff, I guess, are you looking at Series A, and so what's the area?
I would like to invest anything above 700K USD. I don't really put a name to it. Maybe that's, you call it a late seed or a mid seed, and then I'll go up to anywhere up to maybe 5 to 10 million a pop. But what's really important is if I find a company that's really, really cool, that I really want to support, I kind of brush aside the initial capital that they want. I ask them, how much liquidity do you need to last for 2 years without having to raise funds, without having to claw your eyes out and build a team, right? Because funding is not fun. For the investor or the actual founder. Wait, is funding fun? Nope. No, it's not. Holy shit, okay, thank God. Yeah, funding is not fun, right? So I wanted to make sure that when I invest in a company, I ask them, how much liquidity do you need to last for 2 to 2.5 years before you have to go back for a follow-up. And that's where all the conversations that I start begin when I'm very serious about an investment.
Okay. So it's kind of like, so for you, do you think that, are there any particular things you look out for first of all in terms of metrics? Like, are you looking for any traction at all?
Traction is a very interesting subject. I mean, for each VC, the concept of traction and the concept of good speed and velocity is very, very different. You know, some people might think of normal revenue generation at a good clip to be a very good traction. Some people might look at user acquisition or MAU or DAU, daily active users. But for me, it's really about what I come to an understanding with the founder. You know, the founder might have different understandings of what good results are, what good progress is, and then if I can come to an understanding with them that yes, that is good results, then yes, the conversation will progress continuously.
So it's kind of, you look at the technology that they're working on, the problems they're trying to fix, and if you kind of like it, then kind of try to understand where they're coming from when it comes to the numbers. Right?
I mean, it's really different strokes for different folks. Because when I look at VCS, right, it's very very texty. If I ask them, hey, what's your MAU, DAU? They're like, it's 15 people working on an engineering problem. What the hell do you want? Right? So, but if you look at like Carousel, yes, there are users that have traction, right? But then again, if you ask for core technology, compared to what VCS have, they might be lacking. So it really comes down to what the investor is comfortable with and what kind of progress the founder and the VC agree upon, and then we continue the conversation.
I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they complain that VCs generally aren't operators in the sense that they have no startup experience, they don't know how it's like to bring a startup from nothing to IPO, for example. So, like, how do you address that sort of concern? And in general, what does Rakuten Ventures bring to the startup that they invest in, that you invest in?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've worked in startups, but I am not a founder. So I do not have the privilege to actually have gone through all those growing pains. And I'm very respectful and very deferential of the founders. For me, what I try to bring is all the product and business development knowledge that I've formed in Google, which have actually been, at least when I've seen it, very helpful for the founders that I've invested in. But what I'll try to do is, again, liquidity is not my issue. I'll give you as much money as you want, but after the liquidity issue is solved, what I'll do is I'll spend a lot of time actually creating a good angel and investor stack, right? So let me give you an example of Carousel. Right? Carousel's point was they wanted to push in, initial thesis point to push in was we want to open up regional offices, right? So we got people who knew the region very well. We got Kylie to look at Malaysia, we got Danny to look at Indonesia, and then we got Golden Gate because they just had a very good coverage and visibility in terms of Southeast Asia as a whole. And I kind of helped them on product and looked at how I could help them develop a good strategy pushing into each of these markets. And it was the same for my last investment that happened last week, Send Anywhere. It's a file transfer company. And what I essentially did was I looked at their company and I thought they could use product guidance and engineering guidance. So what I did was I got one Google guy who's really a good product manager in Singapore, who does a lot of great data-driven product improvements. And then I got one guy who works at Mountain View, who works on Google X, who builds like infrastructure for Google, helping out in engineering as angels. So building that stack and kind of trying to replicate operational VCs like Anderson Harlow's or Google Ventures is kind of what I'm shooting for whenever I actually say, yes, I'm going to invest in this company.
So it's kind of like bring people together, understanding what the needs of startups are, and then bring in the right talent.
And ideally, if the VC has done his or her due diligence and then pushed forward, they will see specific deficits, right? And make no mistake, VCs, I think it's damn near impossible for VCs to invest in their vision of a perfect company. There will always be deficits, and I think VCs have somewhat of an obligation to fill those deficits by whatever means necessary.
So maybe to shift gears a little bit and just touch on Japanese investors, right? So, I mean, I'm sure you have networked with a lot of them, you know them on the deeper level. So maybe just some insight on, I mean, recently we've seen a lot of Japanese investors come into the region, ventures and so on. So is the money still coming into Southeast Asia? What's happening in the Japanese scene?
I think it's, if you look at some of the news that are going around, the Japanese economy is coming back. And that's also a good sign, and also that's a neutral sign for Southeast Asia, because if consumption is really, really rising in Japan, then that means some of the money that was supposed to be diverted outside for growth will retract back into the Japanese continent, right? But still, the net increase of consumption and more economic activity, I think, will bring a lot of these FDI kind of skews into Southeast Asia, just because it's kind of the next generation of growth. And Southeast Asia as a whole are being a lot more open to foreign investment compared to like places like India or China.
So why is that?
I think it's just in many ways a culture and a mindset. And I think it's been a consistent kind of echo that, Southeast Asia, yes, number one, has some of the critical mass that people want to build a cool business, but secondarily, has maybe a little bit more of an open mindset in terms of how they want to build out a business region.
So when talking to Japanese investors and VCs, like, are there any generalizations you could make comparing, say, Japanese with Silicon Valley and Southeast Asia, maybe?
I think generalization is a very hard thing, just because even if you look at some of the individual VC firms, a lot of these guys have come from Silicon Valley. Like Juan from Korea, he's a really, really cool guy, really great to talk to. He's done multiple stints in terms of doing execution for investments. And I think the only kind of generalization that you can make, if it's possible, is that I think, at least up until now, the Japanese VCs have been a little bit less aggressive than that of the Southeast Asian or US counterparts. But I think more and more is becoming, it's changing a lot more. As you've seen, like Global Brain pushing on a lot more aggressively. As you've seen, Guri just launched a $50 million siege fund, Southeast Asia and Japan fund.
So are there more strategic investors compared to, say, VCs coming in? Or?
I think it's really, really different. I mean, if you look at like GMO Payments, they have their own venture capital arm, but they will only invest in things related to finance and payment stacks. We went into the Coda payment, right? But again, if you look at Guri, you can see that there's not only taking different SKUs on e-commerce, but also they're looking at platform plays and technology plays. So, you see guys like Transcosmos also kind of pushing into different regions in Southeast Asia. So I think it's a very good variety of investors and also investor tastes that are coming into Southeast Asia. And I think diversity is always good.
So, I mean, you've seen a wide range of startups that have approached you and on many occasions. So, what do you think the next few months are some of the trends or technology areas that you think will really work in Southeast Asia and is just waiting for a startup to exploit the opportunity?
I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, so for me, it's try it and find it, right? So, I think what's interesting, at least for me, is related to what's happening in the telecommunications sector. I think there's going to be a lot more innovation going on there. I actually got a really cool newsletter from NUS today because I subscribe to their patent and their technology newsletters, and there's like a really cool patent out right now that's available for licensing related to battery consumption and data optimization related to pre-caching app content. So I think there's a continuous push towards optimizing the resources that people have individually and also the resources they have at aggregate.
What about something like, say, maybe travel? Is that something you look at?
For me, again, my personal stake is I look at travel, but if you have a very interesting technology skew towards it, in terms of how do you make bookings a lot cheaper. I'll dovetail onto an interesting subject. For me, I really don't look at Bitcoin for now. What I do hope will happen with Bitcoin is a lot of the guys will kind of wind down their startups because it's not gaining traction and they got all their Bitcoin stolen. And what they'll do is they'll come back to kind of the financial sector and kind of think of how do I make current fiat currency more secure or more cheaper. That's actually what I want to see. There's actually a movement happening right now related to that in the US with Ripple Labs and XRP and whatnot. But I think definitely when you see kind of a deflation of one vertical, sub-vertical of a startup ecosystem, you'll see those guys kind of winding up into different verticals, adding a lot more diversity and innovation.
Yeah, I mean, on the topic of Bitcoin, I think that one problem is the issue of remittance, right? Being able to transfer money from one country to another, and Bitcoin is supposedly a solution for that, but I think being able to put the ecosystem in place is challenging. So
I mean, for me, like I've gotten a lot of deal offers and deal pipelines for Bitcoin, but for me to put Rakuten's money into Bitcoin, I have a very hard trouble thinking and executing that, because no matter what you think about governmental regulation, currency needs regulation, because regulation also means protection. Does anybody know how much money Mt. Gox lost in Japan? 500 million. Who said that? Cool. Thank you, sir. So, what happens? Do you know what would happen if in Japan somebody lost 500 million US dollars? You would have the Secret Service repelling down out of Black Hawks and like strangling whoever, saying, "Where the fuck is my money?" Right? The fact that that does not happen is a very dangerous thing. Where is that money? Where is all that value gone? Right? You need protection for these things because it's dealing with people's lives and investors' interests. So for me, Bitcoin is a very hard subject to actually tackle, because if it doesn't happen, if feasible protection is not given, then you can't really think about actually building a business out of that, at least from my perspective.
So, coming back to the topic of Rakuten Ventures and its relation to Rakuten, so if Rakuten Ventures, if you invest in startups from wherever, right? So, what is the chance that they will be acquired by Rakuten? How does that work?
The good thing is that I keep a very open mind in terms of what the investment future stake is. I just try to focus on investing in quote unquote good companies, but the future you never know. I mean, if the company does really well and it wants to kind of IPO out, yes, please do it, and then we'll cash out. If we see the company having great success, but also having a chance to be a part of the Rakuten family, I think that's also a viable stake we can have. But for me, I really handle the investment segment, and the M&A is a little bit separate from me.
Okay. So I want to jump into the Q&A session pretty soon, but we just to round it up, like, what's the worst pitch you've ever heard?
No, I mean, seriously, I think the worst pitch that I have seen was it was with a sex toy, but they actually showed they wanted to show me a demo on video. I said no, but what's more interesting is they also showed. They beta tested this and it caused injury. I'm like, why would I? Of course, this conversation delineated into me swearing. So I think that was one of the more interesting pitches that I've seen. But actually, the worst pitch that I've seen was this person talked about a really cool business, but in the end, they showed me a P&L chart, and this guy was trying to pay himself like $10,000 a month. And I think there was a definite kind of bifurcation of expectations. He was expecting to live the life that he used to. He wanted to have the same lifestyle that he did before, and at the same time do a startup. So I think that was the worst impression that I had of an entrepreneur. But I strongly believe that there's no real bad pitches. Everybody's putting their life on the line to do something, and I think that deserves irrespective respect. Respect, whatever it is.